Hi, welcome to the Republic. Today we are very excited to talk about the Sundance darling of last year, Sean Wang's debut feature, Didi. Been very excited to watch this film and it's finally available in Singapore at the projector. Let's talk about it. What a phenomenal debut from Sean Wang. He has applied the filmmaking lesson of the more niche you make your story, the more universal it becomes. This is not a spoiler-free channel. You have been warned. Didi begins at the 13th summer of the protagonist Chris Huang, same surname as the director, hint hint. Very exciting time for Chris, he explores young love, he learns difficult lessons about friendships and people. He sees the sister he fights with on a regular basis, goes off to college, and learns how to love his mom at the same time. All this and more in 94 minutes with lots of early 2000 songs peppered into it to really give the film the flavor of that era. Somebody who's also trying to make her first feature film and looking for money for it and trying to keep the budget as minimal as possible in hope that, I can get just the right amount of money to make it. The first question I had leaving the theater was, how did he manage to get the music clearance on so many songs? How did he manage to get the copyright or access to that? Like, how? I mean, don't get me wrong, he's like a Sundance alumni and all that, but still, this is definitely a low budget movie, but really made well. But, it was not high budget. It's definitely not Marvel money, Yeah. I was just thinking, who did you bribe, Sean? What did you have to do? What dark deeds have you had to perform in name of your passion for you to get these songs in order to add just the right flavor to your film for the early 2000s? I want to know your secrets, Sean. Tell me. Let's start by talking about the writing. Sean has said that he has started working on this script 8 years ago, and it took 8 years for this film to come into fruition. Now, depending on how you look at it, 8 years could be not a very long time for make a film, or it could be extremely long if you are waiting to make your first one. The man's 29, going on 30, which means he started writing this when he was 21, 22. And I'm sure it's gone through a lot of reiterations, but it's very sophisticated. It's very well put together. And I can just imagine like all the drafts and iterations of this had to go through. This is definitely a deeply personal film. It had a lot of experiences that made it unique of its own, but something that we can all relate to, even if we've never been a 13-year-old Asian American boy living in Fremont. We've all had crushes. We've been unsure why our friend was kind of a dick to us, even though we didn't do anything. We've all struggled to listen to our mom, not to mention the fighting with the siblings. If you think about it, this film begins with Chris's mom looking at the calendar page for July 2008, and it ends with Chris starting high school in September 2008, which means all the crazy shenanigans that happens in the film happen over the course of 2 months. Here's what happened in the film in 2 months. Layer 1. This kid has a crush on a girl. He does his research so that this girl would like him back, checking out what she likes and saying that he likes the same things. Succeeds. Yay! Date doesn't go so well. Boo. And instead of talking it out with her, after trying so hard, he shuts her off like a boy. And she moves on because she has other options. That alone could be the plotline of a B grade summer movie. Now, I'm not saying it will make for like the most fantastic movie ever, but so much happened there that it could have been his own movie. We know there are movies that have done more with less. I don't know about you, but I got very giggly and nostalgic at all the AOL scenes. I was an MSN girly myself, but I've definitely done similar things to what Chris did in the movie. I would sign in and out of MSN to try and get my crush's attention. Instead of poking them on FB, I would nudge them on MSN, which is actually super annoying. But I would play it off as like, oops, sorry, that was a misclick. But really, it was just to get their attention. And I'll have like the most emo lyric as my like little message on MSN under my name. It's a real mystery why I was single throughout high school. So on top of that, we got him becoming a filmer for a group of much older skater boys going to his first party and drinking for what I think is the first time, straight up eating a joint. Yes, what the fuck. And then having his sister
pat him on his back while he throws up spectacularly.
This brings us to layer 3, which is this sister who's patting him on his back while he throws up is the same sister that he's been fighting with for like 2/3 of the movie up to this point. We start off the movie by seeing him pee into his sister's lotion bottle. It is very disgusting and like so classically teenage boy. Like they do not get along. And to go from that at the beginning of the movie to this point where the sister is like patting him on the back and we see scenes of her kind of like showing concern from before, like it's the family plot line of the story. Layer 3A is that his mom and grandma, i.e. the mom's mother-in-law, because the grandma is his dad's mom and his dad is in Taiwan making money to support the family. They kind of have like a pretty contentious relationship because the mother-in-law is very vocally critical of his mom, similar to how like brother and sister will fight all the time. But it's not that they don't care for each other. This is explored later on in the movie as well. You can see parts of it. But definitely another layer. So this is the family layer to the plot line. Layer 4. He doesn't have the best GPA, or rather, not a good enough GPA for his mom to brag about when she's talking to her friends. It's also worthy to note that his mom's friend's kid has a 4.0 GPA. Like, that is the best that you can do. How do you fight with that? But as a result, his mom sends him to tuition class. And that is a subplot in itself because there's things that happen in the tuition class. And then there's layer 5. On top of him navigating friendships, such as his best friends sidelining him to impress girls, which is something he kind of understands because he too wants to impress girls. But it's also confusing because this is supposed to be his best friend. And he doesn't know what to do with that as they're growing up and growing older, and he's not sure that they're still friends anymore. He is a person who wants love, a person with dreams, a son, a student, and also just a 13-year-old boy. Like, it's so much when you break it down like that, and so much happens in this movie that's only 94 minutes long. It's not even that long. It could have been very overwhelming, but it was not because it was paced so well. More on this later under editing. The writing was just so well thought out. At no point did I ever feel like something happened sooner or later than when I expected it to be. The script had levity and weight in all the right places, so much so that even something as random as a fish on a plate talking to the protagonist in an otherwise very realistic film doesn't feel out of place because it's been so organized. Now, the fish talking to him bit is probably my one and only gripe about the movie because it's just this random bit of surrealism that pops up in an otherwise very realistic and grounded film. Like, does it feel self-indulgent? Like, in the sense that, does it feel like it was something the director wanted for himself and goes, aha, at behind the camera? Yeah, kinda. But everything else about this movie is so well done that it doesn't even feel out of place. And I can forgive it. It is the man's first feature after all. So yeah, have a little bit of fun, Sean. We'll give you this one. So let's talk a little bit about casting. Now, a lot of things can work on a page, but in the hands of an unsuitable actor, that could all go to shit. However, a lot of things can not work on a page, and in the hands of the right actor, turn into fucking magic. When I was watching this, I was thinking about how thoroughly unpleasant the grandmother character could have become simply because she had lines that were very critical of the protagonist's mom and even his sister. In the hands of an unsuitable actor, let's not say wrong, it could have easily come off as very unpleasant or worse, cringe. But in the hands of Zhang Lihua, the director's own grandmother, it comes off as she is a product of her time and in certain moments, even comical and personable. Apparently, the director had an option of casting a known Taiwanese actor to play his grandmother, but chose to use his own grandmother instead. And this had worried the actor who plays his mom, Joan Chen, a little bit until she saw all the members of the cast in the family on set. And then she's like, this is a stroke of genius because having casted his grandmother in it, he added a layer of authenticity and made the family feel unique and therefore real. I wonder if this connection he personally has with his grandmother is kind of what helped him portray her in a more endearing light than, say, unpleasant, given our previously mentioned reasons of the line sounding very critical. Sean has an Oscar-nominated documentary short about his grandmother before this, so he clearly has experience framing his grandmother in a favorable light. Another little bit of writing meets casting that I really enjoyed was Joan Chen, the protagonist's mom. This part was especially prominent when she had a little monologue to answer Chris's question of, "Are you ashamed of me?" And she explained herself. And in 2 minutes, this woman outlined a whole other life for herself, a whole other story. That monologue could have easily lapsed into self-pity or a drag where you just want it to be over. But in the hands of Joan Chen, in terms of her delivery, it became a whole other story. It became another world that I found myself wanting to see. It was another immigrant story inside this immigrant story. Like, I want a prequel now of Chris Wang's mother and the life she could have had, but didn't. So I don't think anyone is watching this film expecting it to have breathtaking shots as though you're in the middle of Scotland surrounded by mountains and you feel like you're transported right there, or you're in the middle of space. Like, it's not like a shot where it's got those wide landscape shots or it's like really expensive production design. This film was shot well. It's gritty, it's real, it fits the story. I think it's very funny from the get-go that the filmmaker is telling you that they are aware of what the film looks like and what it's going to be and what you should be expecting. In one of the first scenes of the movie, we see his mom tell him, "Don't put the camera on the floor, it makes for ugly composition." The mom is later revealed to be an artist and a pretty good one, so it makes sense that she knows what composition is and is somebody whose word you should listen to. However, because this film is about a 13-year-old boy, they do not listen to his mom. However, when you're 13, you don't want to admit your mom is right. You double down. And this is kind of seen from how the film has a lot of low-angle shots, say, shooting at the protagonist with what is seemingly an unflattering angle. It works, however, for the movie because it's not about flattering the protagonist. It's about portraying him in the most honest light possible. And this is what the movie achieved. This is why they favor naturalistic lighting, with the color palette overall being very subdued. On top of that, I also think the editing is really what made this film. It is such a tight 94 minutes. Like, at no point did anything ever feel like a drag or rush. And yes, that is me quoting another great movie that is also making an experience so niche it feels universal. At no point are you bored, nor will you think that, oh, this is allowed in the film because something big is going to happen next. You don't, because you don't really have time to think. You are so caught up in the film because the film is asking you to. There are like, oh, yes, young love moments. There are party moments. There are group scenes between the protagonist and his friends. And of course, skating videos. There are also grainy skater videos that are supposed to be from Chris's perspective of what he has shot of the skater boys that he has been hanging out with, and also a lot of screenshots of AOL. Cutting between these things and what is happening in the movie could easily lapse into like, ugh, bring me back to the movie already. I don't want to see screenshots, but you don't get that from this movie. Like, why are we watching a screen on screen? That has always bothered me, but in this movie, the filmmakers managed to use it as a tool to enhance the story and pace it in the edit so it never overtakes the plot or wasn't overused. And you accept that this film story would require you to do some reading. And you do it because it's worth it. So far, this film has proven that it's worth it, and it does till the very end. It could easily be argued that that was lazy, that is telling instead of showing me what's happening, ergo that makes for bad filmmaking. But in the context of this movie, I would say it actually added another layer of reality to the film because yes, that is what we used back in the early 2000s to communicate with one another. The film makes it feel even more personal because we now have a peek into the protagonist's private thoughts and conversations, such as when he sees him delete a message or when he's talking to a bot for comfort. As a result, it gives it this universal connection where we're like, yeah, we've been there. We've done that. We've been 13. This movie was set in the early 2000s, and while it might not feel that far away for some of us, it definitely is, and therefore period. Which means design is very key in helping to establish the look and feel of that time. The use of AOL, Windows XP, as well as MySpace and early Facebook, where people still interact with each other on it, definitely help add to the realistic feel of putting you back in that time. As well as the flip phones. Apparently, the lead actor, who is 16 and therefore very, very Gen Z, could not stand the flip phones. Like, he metaphorically threw the flip phone out when they were done filming. And I'm like, bruh, same. I also really like the little touches of Asian culture, which is obviously key to portraying the life of a 13-year-old Asian American boy. Like, they all use chopsticks while they're eating dinner. Duh. And the red and gold details on the calendar his mom uses. Like, I'm pretty sure my mom still uses that. And my favorite part of all is the low angle shot of the non-Asian older skater boys who barges into Chris's house without taking their bloody shoes off. This film has so much, it still leaves me wanting more. Like, I want to know what happens to Nai after a fall. I want to know what happens to Vivian after she goes to university. I want to know what happens to Maddie. Like, she goes from, you're kind of gangster, to, you hit my friend at the end of the movie. Like, what happens? Is there a love triangle going on? Does he try to get her back? Does he move on? Like, you know, what's going on there? I even want to know what happens to those skater boys. Like, do they make it on YouTube? Do they go viral somehow? Or do they just fade into oblivion because nobody cares? If so much can happen in 2 months when you're 13, what happens for an entire school year? Like, I want to know. What about next summer? What about when it's Chris's turn to go to college? Like, I honestly think I will be very happy watching Chris grow older if it is done by the hands of Sean Wang and his genius and well thought out screenplays. I think Sean is in a very privileged position now. I call it the Citizen Kane curse, in which his feature is so mind-blowingly good. Everybody just wants to know what he does next, and understandably, the pressure is high, but I'm sure he's going to rise to the occasion, and I'm so excited to see what he does next. I don't even care if it's like short or TV, or he starts posting TikToks. Like, if it's in the hands of this man, I want to see it. I want to know what's next. Sean, I can't wait for your next project. If you haven't watched this movie, if you're in the States, run to your nearest cinema to watch it. If you are in Singapore, go to the projector and watch this film. You would be well worth the ticket price. And thank you for watching this. Like, subscribe, and comment. I think that's what you're supposed to do. But yeah, it's been a weird time doing these reviews because people are saying that if you want a freaking career, you shouldn't be talking about other people's films online. And as somebody who's trying to make her first feature and also just really enjoys yakking about movies, I don't see why I can't do both. This has been Ray. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you on the next one.